15.5 metres, and upon reviewing the Zoom meeting that was put in, I think January of this year for that application, there was a discussion about just putting in some trees to make it not look as bad and to help with the sound and everything coming off. But the trees that you're putting there are inevitably not going to be 15.5 metres high, so the site and the look of the building is still there, and they are in our back gardens. How can you guys address that?
Well, initially I would say that we've had the officers down there actually this morning with their tape measures, which they have done, and the height of the building is as per the 2017 planning application. To answer your question, there is a condition which has to be agreed of what reinforcement they're going to put on the boundary, which hasn't been concluded yet, but it will.
When should we expect a conclusion?
I have no idea.
Right, okay.
I mean, it has to be done before they've completed practical completion of the building. So they have to submit it, it has to be approved, and they have to do it.
Okay, no problem. Because even since that structure's been erected and now, we're still having to put up with the site of the building, the height of the building. Our privacy is compromised because you've got birds going off on forklifts overlooking the property. Not to mention the noise that I think we're going to come up on later. So I think the height of the building of Unit E is quite a big one that we need to address.
I'd like to ask you, how is it possible that you guys could sign off a building that is significantly higher than the Amazon building that's adjacent to it?
Yeah.
Did it never occur to you that environmentally the impact on the neighbourhood would be a disaster? Absolutely.
Well, firstly, this was approved in 2017.
We never saw
nothing.
We
saw nothing.
We never saw any documentation
not
from
one
the
document.
council.
Sorry, excuse me. The plans was approved in 2017, but the plans changed since 2017, not what's up now.
And out of a lot of pretty much all, I can speak for all of the residents here, they were not formally consulted either. And I believe in January 2021 of this year in the meeting, there was, I think you said you sent out 187 letters, of one person responded, but I would like to see proof of those 187 letters getting delivered, because we are the community, none of us have received those letters.
Hey, I can step in there. 4 months ago I complained about a lack of consultation, and I forced the planning, well, I didn't force them actually, they did it upon my response, there was no threat or anything. But there were over 900 letters that went out that day. It was 187 addresses, 3 letters. So that in itself was 561 letters that should have gone out. And according to their records of their franking machine, which I asked for, there were nearly 900. I consulted our local postman, Ray, who actually lives in Billings, and he said, yeah, I remember the day well. He said, those letters went out, but not to every one of the addresses. He said that nearly all the ones on the boundary got them. So I had to drop that complaint, if you like. There were other issues I raised, I won't go into them at the moment, but they went out. Whether they got the addresses...
Sure, it seems there's a bit of a miscommunication here though, because surely if the residents haven't kicked up a fuss at that point and the consultation process wasn't as successful as what it could have been, and then that's a learning lesson on your behalf that you should have done a bit more of a formal consultation.
Converted buildings on the Flex Meadow. Yeah. They went out to people in Orchard Croft, I think it was, up by the Salvation Army. They went out to the GlaxoSmithKline Star Canteen. Why? Come on, why were these guys? I challenged that. I said, well, we sent out more than we had to, which is a positive. And to me, it's not a positive because you missed me out. I didn't actually get them. And also, I would say, and I think I've seen some of these letters going out, and when they go to the householder, a lot of people say, another circular. So that could have happened in many situations.
Can I answer your question? Sorry. So to answer your question, they're both 15.5 metres tall. To answer your question, the application in 2017 was what's called an outline application. So they just agree the perimeter, and broadly what it's going to be. There's no
Yes.
detail on this.
Right.
Then the detailed application, which they have to do for each building,
Right.
decides the form and all the other bits and pieces, the access and the parking and all that bit.
Right.
And most of the location of the building was agreed back in 2017. So that's why the January meeting was very quick, because it was just for the reserve matters. And a lot of those were under conditions as well.
But on that plan, it didn't state how near it was to our homes and how high it was. It just showed you a plan of what's going to go there. It didn't tell you the measurements and what
Was
it
that
was
for
going to be.
2017?
It shouldn't even have got to planning.
What were you consulting on that letter that you sent out to the people with the retrospective?
That probably answers, because the consultation that's done, there's a kind of minimum requirement that's set out of what you have to do to consult the statutory consultation. So it's the local residents, and they produce a list of who the local residents are.
Do they have to be local to the building? Or
Yes,
are they
they
just
are.
the outside Harlow?
No,
That's
the local residents. And then there's the statutory consultees, which is English Heritage, Highway, whatever, all of those as well. So that then happens. But theoretically, when it comes through your door, you're supposed to open this up and go, oh, I'm not interested in that, or I'm interested to find out
Why
more
don't
about
you
this.
address them?
So forget all that, sir. Imagine that being built outside your house. Would you
Let me finish the explanation.
No, you're just going around the edges.
Come on.
2017.
Come to you, let me get to that. So, and you look at this and you think, I want some more information. So, when you go on the
No,
internet.
we look at it, go to the occupier, chuck it in the bin. Why don't you address it to us? If you've got a list of local residents, why aren't they addressing it to us personally?
I don't know the answer to that.
The councillor will, pay your council tax,
I
I
mean-
think you address it personally.
No, you probably use a postal database, which doesn't have name.
But regardless of that, if the plan has changed significantly since that consultation went out to the people. So
Yes, it
if
has,
people
that's what I
agree
said.
that the plan,
Can I just again come in here, because in 2017 I went to the church to have a look at the open days that were there. I grabbed one of the guys from the developer and I said, right, I live here, and he showed me the building that's going to go behind me, which is now Unit D. It is nothing whatsoever like what Unit D is now. That should have been treated as a completely new development, because all it was a good old-fashioned, straightforward, 2 levels of offices at the front, 20, 30 car parking spaces in front of that, warehouse behind. He told me all the right things. All the noisy lorries will be at the other side. They're all going to be in the centre of the development, so it won't disturb the people who live on the boundary. And it will be no higher and no nearer than the GlaxoSmithKline buildings were. It is now nearer and higher than the GlaxoSmithKline
And
buildings
noisier.
were.
can I just say something, please?
I'll let them answer.
Can I answer that one first?
Carry on, after you.
Unfortunately, I didn't come to that exhibition before my time as a councillor.
That's not an excuse though, is it?
Well, no, so I'm just
Because
saying,
you would know.
I haven't been to it.
You would know, and there should be a record of that, what you produced at that.
So if I was allowed to finish, I would say that when they've done their exhibition, it's their pre-application consultation. They should then take what they've shown and put that into their application. Although it's only outline, how close it's going to be to your homes should have been in there.
We never got a consultation at that time. Nothing.
Coming back to your point, of course, with your letter, having tried to go and find some more information, you go on the internet, and it's impossible to find the information you want to find. It is absolutely terrible, and all the council websites are the same. If you're not in the industry and you don't know what you're looking for, you can spend days looking for it. So the letters are being sent out. We're going to do a review of these, but the letters we send out obviously are not right, because people are not paying attention to them, or they're just throwing them away. And secondly, if you are interested and you go on the internet, you can't find the information you want. And also, there's no guidance up there to say what you should be looking for. So that's something I'm going to address over the coming months to see if we can sort it out. And I've forgotten what your point was there.
About the fact that it should have been treated as a completely new planning application.
Sorry, yes.
It's nothing like the original building. It's a multi-storey car park, but that's for 400 vans.
Yeah, that's very irritating.
24/7.
Of the developers who've done that, because basically when they do the exhibition, they're supposed to be telling you what they're going to build. Admittedly, they're only putting an outline application, so they should have said, this is what we may there, because all that was consented was, this is the boundary, and you can put 44,000 square metres of warehouse into that area.
And they're
But
all
you-
24/7.
They all have to come back, they have to come back for a detailed application for each building.
So why did the council hold them to account then?
Someone must have.
Why did the council hold them to account then when they changed the plan? Why was it just a
I'm
not
not
through
sure.
application?
Because we can only act on what they submit.
So therefore they must have broken the application.
Well, no, they put their application in.
Yeah,
Details
which was
exactly-
different from the original plan, so why was it a not through?
They've only submitted one plan, which was.
No,
No, but there was another plan application which was a not through in January for the big
Yeah,
warehouse E.
that was the detailed application for D and E.
But why wasn't it reviewed? I looked at these, it was 5 minutes, no one checks, oh, bit of sound review, yeah, we'll pass it through.
Well, yeah, noise is
That's
one of the
disgusting.
conditions that they have to fulfil.
Yeah, but it was a not through, there was no detailed look at the plans or anything, how does this affect the local residents?
It didn't seem anyone on that call understood what was being shown to them. Right, the light drawings, everything that was put in front of them. That's why it took 5 minutes, because no one understood it. So
And
they
the
just
common
said
theme of
yes.
the conversation as well was, I think, there was no expert opinion there at all.
The only thing they talked about was car park spaces. And haven't got
And
lights.
trees.
The thing is, all of them understand what we're saying, and they all agree with us in what we're saying, but they're not doing nothing about it.
I'm sure that, like my mum said, you guys can agree that it's obviously appalling that
Oh,
a
it's
building's
horrible.
built like that.
Terrible,
Exactly.
it's
So
terrible.
please can we do something about it? That's my point. And that's why we would like to be here. We'd like to address what next steps we can go through from here, because we don't want to grovel on the fact that, you know, these buildings are put here, they've ruined our livelihoods, dust, mental health, physical health, the lights, the noise, the disturbance, constant. We don't want to put up with it, so we want to understand what next steps we're going to take to get Unit E to come down, because it is ridiculously too close, and it's ridiculously too high, and the noise that that's going to bring is ridiculous. Amazon building, that needs to be addressed as well. The lights that are protruding into people's homes at Church End is just, like someone said, it's like black wall illuminations, that's not okay. The noise levels from all of the vans coming in and out, you can't guarantee that they're all going to be electric vehicles because it's a car park for the employees. They're not going to pay out for that, so there will be noise from there. Let alone pollution on top of that. And if anyone here has asthma, like my dad does, the dust has been a huge issue. My dad can't stop coughing. So it's affecting physical, mental, all of this, and we just want to know
We just want answers.
where we can go from here, because you understand, everyone we've spoken to said we understand. I spoke to Robert Halford, he understands, but that doesn't help us.
And they're continuing to construct the building.
Yes.
They're now in the process of trying to get the safety rails in place so they can start constructing the roof. You know, at the end of the day, what we really need is we need some action by the council to address this plan in this way. Because whichever way you cut it, that building is huge. It impacts on at least maybe half a dozen houses that back onto it. And it is absolutely a travesty of justice. It really is. There's no reason, other than money, why they can't take down 5 bays of that building and put it up the far end of the site. They should be doing that. That should be under review now. And that's something the council should be pushing. I understand the need to get jobs into Harlow, but it should not be at the detriment of the residents of this area.
As Hayley raised it about the lights on D, then I'll get rid of a later agenda item. The council did the right thing there, the planning department. They said back shields should be fitted to those upper lights. No back shields have been fitted. It was a planning condition. The building's now been handed over to Amazon. And the last I heard was, oh, it's down to Amazon what they do about it. Why? If it's a planning requirement, why wasn't it done? Why wasn't it enforced?
They haven't actually switched them on.
No, but you know, what's the point? They will eventually,
They will,
Sharon.
yeah.
They will eventually.
Right, let us let them answer.
They were on for 3 days testing, and it was like living next to Wembley Stadium.
Okay, so next steps, what can we do? Is
Can I
the
do it?
construction going to start? Let's go ahead.
You're not getting a word in edgeways.
Well, you can see everybody's quite angry.
I more than appreciate that.
And you're, that's
Shows how they're nervous.
Unfortunately, they can't stop me.
Straight question, sorry, can they legally put those lights at
that level on that building.
Yeah, I'll come to that in a second. Going back to, I can't remember who said it, but on what has happened, and I can't really speak for what's happened in 2017, but I have asked officers, and they have done an investigation as to why that was consented in 2007. Who knows? But it was. And the only way that, the way that planning committees work is they have to work within planning law, which is actually quite strict. So when an application comes in, they do all the checks. It conforms to everything, they do all the negotiation on the second whatever, and then they write a report. And the members of the committee have to rely on that report, because obviously they're not planning consultants, they have an understanding of it, but not technical. So they rely on the officer's report to base their decision. Then they have to make their decision. They can't make their decision before the committee. They have to do it on the night on the evidence that's placed before them. So the people for, the people against, the debate, the questions. So they made their decision in 2017. There's nothing we can do about that because it's 4 years ago. And it was an outline application, so it was just for the
time of buildings and the warehouse and back, that's what that was for.
No, it was just for the border, and they could do 44,000 square metres of warehouse in it.
Nothing to do with
It
boundary
didn't
lines.
height.
Not height, so that was all the details. When the detail application came forward, it obviously did say the height, the width, and what the because it was originally for 4, they've now done, well, they've done 2 so far, one big one and one big one and one small. The planning committee in January, all they could consider was the reserve matters. So nothing to do with the location or any of those matters. They could just make a decision that is this building in conformity with the outline consent, yes or no. That was basically about it. They could discuss other things, but most of the decisions were made, including the 24/7 operation, were made in 2017. So really the councillors, their hands are tied on that one.
So
Can I
just,
just ask, sorry, it wasn't that in 2021 that we allowed to push the building, what is E close to the windows then?
No, it was on the border.
I think there was additional application from us for building closer.
who granted the
Changing the
boundary?
borderline.
Yeah.
There was definitely an
Who
application
granted?
changing the borderline.
Sure.
Yes.
Well, there was a
Yeah.
slight to make it straight as opposed to with a jiggling.
Well,
No,
actually-
it was bringing much closer to the.
No, it was just a straight line.
It's not
That's
that.
not
It's
right.
sorry, it's much more technical than that, and you know that. That's the contingent boundary.
I could give you
And it
the
was
technical one, but
You already know that, and also the building rights for that as well, because that's also common law, so the 15.5 metres is irrelevant. You know that, if you're a planner.
the 15.5 is what was consented at planning, is what was
But consent, no consent, that's too high, you know.
So they've agreed the height. When did they agree how close it would be? Because it's considerably, block E is considerably closer than
And it
block
was
D.
challenged by the consultants as well.
The
How
border
close, yes.
in which they can build was agreed in 2017.
The peak factory that they're built on it is 9.14 metres for the rear of our properties. When was that agreed and why was people not then consulted that it was going to be that close?
It's
Whether or not they're going to build within that proximity or not, if you're going to build a factory and bring it right to the edge of the boundary, that surely provokes another conversation.
There's a drawing I saw that seemed to intimate that it was 25 metres from the nearest house.
Building E and the 5 houses which are on Bingham's building E has been built as per the consent from the distance from the.
Can I ask if within that consent there was any consideration about the law of nuisance at all? So the law of nuisance can consider things around dust, light, pollution, noise, because none of those currently have been addressed because we've had to put up the noise for the past 2-3 years of the construction of it. Now we're going to get into building of it, and all that we've heard they're going to do is we'll put a few more trees up. And we know that that's not going to stop anything, because my dad had to go over the site the other day to switch up a generator that was for a tea and coffee machine because it was that noisy. So let alone the noise that 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 unit E is going to make if it's just at the rear end of our
And that's
garden.
at 25 to 8, when you're supposed to stop at 7.
Do you agree it's too
Can I
close?
just ask your questions first? On the dust,
Yeah, law of nuisance.
the light, well, the dust and the noise is being addressed at the moment.
It hasn't been, I mean,
On
this
the
is,
construction out of hours, they've already been served with an enforcement notice in June.
Yeah, it took at least a dozen of us to make complaints to get them enforced.
Yeah, but since then, we've had no complaints whatsoever.
Would you like to say?
No. The way it works is, if there is a breach of a condition,
There's those days to improve it.
we
yeah.
serve an enforcement notice
Yeah.
in 28 days to improve it. If they haven't after 28 days, we can then take
Yes, at the
action
time that they were
against them.
floating the floors and doing all the noise past midnight, and we phoned up and complained about it. It took at least, because I'm from Smallbingham's, it took at least a dozen of us to make a complaint before we all got the same generic email response back from your enforcement officer.
Can I just...
So they did go out, as did some of the councillors, to find out what's going on down there out of hours.
Well, out of hours to visit the stand.
Yeah, what time did you get? 9:30?
9:30 when there was toilets.
And what did you do?
We saw what
No,
was
what did you
going
do after you knew there was a problem?
All this was going on at the
So
time.
what did you actually do? You're asking us what we did. What did you do?
Right, we reported what was going on,
Okay.
and that's why part of this is going on now.
Well,
I saw the lights, the arc lights onto what I
Of
think
course,
was.
what's the benefit of reporting that?
What
Because
was
we
reported?
reported it, we've got 28 days in which to still suffer with it before anything happens.
Obviously, that's the law, but after 28 days, of course, then we can take action. But as we haven't had any complaints until
This has been going on
last week,
That's
This has been going on for 2 years.
ridiculous.
Right, so you
That's
need
You
to
have
want to
had
have
You've had thousands of complaints.
I've
And it's all
personally sent
got
one every
no-
single day over
none
the
did
past
not.
months.
Can I just say something? Sorry. The developers Stonewall that have built the one that we're talking about, the main building now, they're developers on the actual land, and obviously ISG are building for Stowford. Now we've dealt with and spoken to, I don't know how many people met him, Kevin, who was the manager of the site. He's come round our house, introduced himself, we spoke to him loads of times. He's been instructed by Tony Nash, the director of Stowford,
Not to
not
reply
to
our
deal with
emails.
any of us anymore. Directly.
That's
And we was
what
told
Tony
we started it, any problems, Kevin come round and introduce yourself, contact me, it's my mobile, we've got you, contact me anytime. And now he's been instructed by
No,
Stowford developer,
not to
any
answer
complaints,
us.
queries, don't answer them.
Yeah, the problem is, when we went to the residential meeting, they said any complaints, contact us. We've been contacting them themselves. I've been talking to contact centres and everything. And they just passed me round. But amazingly, when I found out about that generator a few weeks ago, then suddenly it just got switched off and I thought, lovely. So somebody's doing something. So, and we ain't complaining to yourself, we're complaining to the company.
well, I can't.
Hoping that they'll do
but
Yeah, but that's their communication to us. We're everything for them. Yeah, we do everything for it, any complaints, ring us, let me know.
But
We
we
ring
just-
them, and now you can tell them.
We just want answers. What is there a possibility that building can be pushed further away and smaller? Can that happen?
no.
So it's going to go ahead no matter what we're sitting here
So
saying.
this is ridiculous, then
I
this is
haven't to decide.
No, because if it's any of us, we build something hideous in the garden, you'd be telling them to knock it down.
We'd have to have planning
Yes,
permission.
this unfortunately conforms to the
Okay.
plans.
So whatever we're saying here, it's going to go ahead.
The building is yes.
And then please may I ask who's holding the budget to compensate for the loss of value in the homes that are here? Because no one's going to want to live in an industrial area. I mean, our friend here is just trying to purchase number 46. He doesn't want to buy it anymore unless the outcome of this meeting is good. That makes that property unmarketable. Let alone all of the other homes here are now unmarketable. No one's going to want to live there. All the properties are now devalued. Who's paying out for that? By signing off that development, all of our homes have devalued because you've turned it into an industrial
No
site.
one's going to
It's
want to
no
buy
longer a
that.
lovely cul-de-sac community and where everyone wants to live. Everyone here
What are
is
you going
angry.
to do about that?
I could hear people talking on the top of that van deck in my bedroom, chatting.
And then swearing while I've got my
Anyway.
daughter in the garden. It's ridiculous.
What are you going to do about the value of our homes?
Well, all of this, the loss of amenity was considered in, I hope it's considered,
Clearly
in the
not.
report.
Right?
You obviously had a 2017 oversight.
No.
I'm sorry, but nothing.
All the people that done
Yeah.
the planning in 2017 have left.
And you just said, I hope it was.
I know they've left because I've been told they've gone. So who made these plans?
Are you talking officers or?
Yeah, who made the committee that made the arrangements in 2017? They've all left. They're not there no more.
We've honestly, we've tried speaking to all of them. All of them have said, oh no, his left, it's a blame game. So now they're all saying, okay, guys back in 2017, just like what you're doing, saying if they did it, our hands are tied, you know, it's
And they're not
happened,
there
so
no
So
they're
what
not
can we
there
do? What can we do? Because you're sitting here, we're all sitting here,
Yeah.
and it's like a stalemate.
It's a case of on the lighting and the noise. The officers are currently looking at that as to whether there's been any breaches and if there has.
There has been breaches, that's what we're here to tell you
The
about.
problem is that this is a legal process. There has to be the proper due process. There has to be evidence. It then has to be submitted.
We've got evidence.
Yeah, I need it then.
Yeah,
but we've sent them.
We've sent them all to Robert Hanford and all the
No,
rest
that's not
of
me.
the
That's I need it come to me.
environmental
Oh, your name's just popped up at the last minute.
Right, I had said, just got asked how many letters into the
Yes,
planning.
please. I want to know the value of my house. What are you going to do?
Unfortunately, I was appointed in May. My job title doesn't really say that things do planning, so I quite understand why I haven't been copied in, but I haven't been. I've only become aware of this the last couple of
Again,
weeks.
that's a blame game.
That's a bit
Yeah,
unfair.
that's not our job.
That's a bit
And
unfair.
why have they sent you?
Yeah.
Why are you here and not the committee that said it can all go ahead? Why aren't the others here?
Because unfortunately, the buck stops with me.
Yeah, but your comment.
But you've not made no decision.
No,
You just said you haven't given your evidence to you. You've only been there since May. Well, that's a bit unfair. You can't do that. This has been going for years.
What's the consideration for lighting?
So is this just a pat you on the head?
Your
and
ward
then
councillor
just
here says he's not had any emails from anybody.
Hang on, there, I've written to you personally. Councillor 164 Church End. You and Matt Saggers, who brought you down to site to have a look at the lighting problem, and that was the night they turned it off.
Yeah, I
Right.
haven't seen it. No,
So-
no one wrote to me in 2017 or 2020 or 2000.
Prove it.
How can you complain you don't know how tall the building is going to be?
Right. Let me just tell you how planning works, right? I'm not a planning officer, I'm nothing to do with planning, I'm one of the local councillors. And I've had this many times. Buildings, people put in a planning application, it's nothing to do with me. Then somebody decides, oh, hang on a minute, I don't like that, we'll get the local councillor involved. So I then become involved, and sometimes it's they want this building, and sometimes they don't want the building. So I support them whichever way round. With this building, I never got written to once by anybody.
Because we wasn't
Up to
properly
2000.
consulted.
Yeah, but there was 187 letters went in.
Of which we
Of which
received
we
no
received.
Okay, and the company concerned had an open meeting at the church.
Where they went, where they were
And
no
they went,
buildings.
but nobody then sent me any letters.
Yeah,
to say-
because there was nothing to report, it was a bog standard warehouse,
Okay.
not a 5 floors of planning parking.
I went
Totally radically different
I'm
from
not
what we
arguing with
saw.
what you're saying.
Right, so why would we be writing to you at the time
Just
then?
to interrupt you there, what is there is actually 7 metres lower than what was there before. Although it was. It's not so that something completely different.
It's the same thing. Another 7 metres lower, but the other building has been taken down. If you look further back, that's not taller. But can I just make a point regarding planning? In 2017, the boundary lines were approved by the council and that was all signed off. Since then, there have been construction changes in the design of the building. What should have happened is the council should have then put that back out to the residents for consultation.
Because there was no change between those two types.
You just said
It's
2017,
not a low-level building.
2017, the heights hadn't been specified.
But how many of them specified until the detailed planning?
And when the detailed planning application came out, nobody saw it around here.
Well, 180.
Well, you'd be amazed how many people
Right,
say.
who's to say the 900 letters went out weren't about your council tax, weren't about the elections, weren't about whatever. You've got 900 letters going out. It doesn't say they're about this. And none of us have received them. Or were we consulted? How can you prove that we was consulted? And what addresses were consulted? Because No one in this room's had a letter, so did you actually send them out?
A list was extracted against the they were from the post office.
Who's on this list? Is anyone here? Is anyone saying on that list? But you've got a list of names that you send back to the occupier. Do they even live in the house to make any sense? Do they live in
You're all there.
If we're on the database, why don't you use the names? And we've got a list of names on the address to me, I'll open it.
Most of the databases do not have names on it, they just have the address.
Can I ask a question?
It's run by the post office, so they don't know it.
Well, that's ridiculous, then, isn't it? And you're not addressing
Yeah,
us
if
by person.
if they have the names, they
Can I ask
just
you,
execute
you're here
it.
today, what are you going to do about it? It seems to me you're going to be back all
Well, I've come here to explain it.
Oh, but we don't want you to explain, we want to know what you're going to do about it.
Right. What you want is you want the buildings taken down and back to what it was. That's never going to happen.
No, we just
It's
need
never
to.
gonna- So what we should try and do is alleviate the situation that
Oh,
it's
how are
in.
you going to do that? You're going to show that garden and you look at those prison. Jesus Christ, would you like to live there?
No,
Would you
we're
like to
totally
live there?
sympathetic to what's going
No,
on.
so, oh, not in my backyard, but you wouldn't want to live there, but you don't mind that we're going to live there and you can do nothing about it.
And the fact is that not only was one lot of 180 letters sent out, there were 3 sets, plus what the...
But not addressed to us, so you know
But then
what
there are new residents that have just moved in. 1 minute there wasn't aware of us, next minute was.
Yeah,
Beyond your house.
I get these letters not over.
You didn't get these.
The letters were sent out to an address, not to a person. They were
That's
sent
the
to an
point,
address.
that's why no one opened it.
Right, but when a letter comes to an address, you open it and have a
No,
look.
you don't. You tell me you open every letter that says to the occupier.
Yes,
I
I
go
do.
straight in the bin.
No,
Don't be
it's
stupid.
I'm afraid I open every letter that comes
Sorry,
in.
so this letter up for 3 days.
Excuse me, Michael, do you agree it's too close and too high yourself?
Yeah,
Yeah,
You
definitely.
do?
So
Sorry, yeah.
where does the law stand? What,
Yeah, the law.
what checks should have done the consulting action committee that they might have missed? Have they done sunlight and daylight assessments? Have they done all of that? Is there anything that they should have done but they haven't done?
Yes, that's what I mean, if you're in planning and you agree it's too close, and you agree it's too high,
Yeah, my view is not planning law.
Well, of course
Planning
it's
law
not.
is
No,
planning law.
but-
How many times do the planners do like out check? How many site visits do the planners do? Do they go regularly?
Well, the officers down there this morning,
Right,
ready for
and
this
what?
meeting.
so like,
So nothing's changed?
So what is the law?
Yeah.
so is there a law for
Yeah, so
sunlight?
So that's it.
there is a law called the unreasonable interference with the use of our property. And if that site is unreasonably interfering with the use of our land, then yes, we can go through legislation and go to the courts and we can take them to court. We can do that. I work in construction, I know that. And that is the next step that we can take because it is disrupting the use of our property. We cannot sit in our garden, we cannot sunlight because we're going to be shaded. We cannot sit there without the noise. We can't have washing on the land because of the dust. My dad can't work from home because it's too noisy. He's had to shut himself in the far bedroom, shut all the doors. Cannot have meetings because of the noise and the drilling and bang, bang, bang. He can't do all of that. So it is unreasonable interference with the use of our property, and we can go through legislation together, and we can hit it that way, and we can take Harlow Council to court, and we
And
can
can
do
we
that.
bill it to you?
Yeah, and
As solicitor.
can we get to the actual policies and procedure that should have been followed? What checks should have been done? You are referring to the procedure that should have been followed. So what are these? Where is these documents written so we can review?
Yeah, so we can look at them
decide
ourselves.
what they-
What I can do is send you the link, it's all online.
Yeah.
Which you would agree that you want to, you will find it.
I'll send you the link directly to it. What it
Yeah.
is the officer's report for 2017.
And what about the one in 21 then?
You can have that link as
No,
well.
not the actual report, but what should have been.
Procedures.
that-
No, that
What should have
report
been
covers
the-
everything that was looked at.
But
every
you
policy.
said yourself it's difficult to find.
Sorry?
You said yourself it's everything that we need to review is difficult to find.
It is,
online,
yeah,
right?
it is.
So you dig it out for us, we'll
Yeah,
review
as I said, I'll send.
Can I just say
No,
one?
not the link, not the link.
Everyone in the
Yeah.
document, over 150 pages.
One of
Not
our
from you,
neighbours.
Send it
you've got
on,
time, yeah?
send a copy to all of us.
Let me just make a point about the council's website, the plan. One of our neighbours' daughter works for the Royal Household as a surveyor, so she's pretty clued up. She couldn't make the head and the tail of the council's website for planning. She couldn't find the information she was looking for. What chance would us lot have?
Exactly, I agree, absolutely agree.
That's
Unfortunately,
Can I just say about this?
unfortunately, all councils use the same template. So all councils' websites are largely independent.
So we're talking about Harlow.
So we're as bad as everyone else. That's good.
Please.
If you're consulting Joe Public, they should be in reasonable terms,
Yeah,
that any
I
time they come,
absolutely
read
agree.
that
Absolutely.
thing. Yeah, I understand that, rather than all these jargon.
So when I came in, I looked at this and saw that things were not going right. You've just demonstrated it's not right because A, you can't get the information, and the letter you get, probably just going in the bin. It's not right, so we're going to be looking at that. When I first came in, I discovered that ward councillors weren't getting lists of planning applications in their ward. They had no idea. Unless a resident writes to them, they don't know what goes on. And I remember one planning committee where a large scheme came up and none of the committee knew about it before they saw the report, which is not on. There needs to be far earlier engagement and ward councils need to know about it. So I think it's a system where they get each week a list of all the planning applications. That's the first thing I do. So that now he knows what's happening in his ward.
Yeah, but that's like something
That's because it's So, and the next step, of course, is that, and this is you find out, is the way we communicate and engage is not good enough. It is the barest minimum required by law. The previous administration never believed in consultation anyway, so nothing's happened really. So what I'm going to do is we're going to look at the way we engage with the public and try and improve it. So
It doesn't help us.
Say sorry, and you'll be all right. That's what the law says you have to do.
What the law says you should do, or what common sense says you should do, are two very different things. As Sharon said, you put the notices as far away as possible from Bingham's and Church End.
Yeah, I mean, if
The
you've got
other,
if you've got
diametrically opposite
based on the third avenue. Can I just answer this?
Yeah.
Of course, the law requires that we have to apply notice outside where the application is, so that's what we have to do that. But, the consultation also said we write to all the local residents, which we did.
You did.
And
We have
I haven't had
so that is
any
very
letters
simple.
saying.
What I'm saying is that we're going to be reviewing the way we engage in terms of planning and seeing in the future, to avoid this all happening again, that you
backtrack on the
get
process that you
What
get.
are you going to do for us?
so what we're going to do is compensate us.
How could we have objected that when you didn't write to us? You're saying you did, we didn't receive
how
it.
can you improve?
How can we, what happens? Because
What are you going to do?
Sure.
Well, I can understand one or two going missing, but not 183 times.
Basically.
Would it have made a difference? Would they have stopped the planning? Would they have stopped the building? No, they wouldn't. They still would have built that flipping building.
The whole idea is to get people's views. So that it didn't happen in 2017. It happened in
Well, it's going to be.
2021.
But in
there must be
2000.
something on system that you can read.
What?
Well, you're saying you weren't here then, so you don't know, but you've got a computer system.
What information do you want?
I'd like to see
Well, we're asking you, any question, you say, well, I wasn't here then. Well, the council have records on a computer system.
Yes.
Officers that take calls make notes, surely you can go through your computer system, that's
Yeah.
why
Any-
we have computer
Any
records.
contact that was made was planning or contact, which was an objection or a support or
But you didn't get anything. You didn't get any letters.
Well,
So
I can
what are you
understand
going
a
to
few.
do now?
I'm sure they all know.
But you said you haven't got any complaints either.
But even a comment would have been lodged as a comment on that application. There are 6. One in support, one who was neither for or against.
But this is all about money, isn't it? This is all about money. You don't care about us, James, because we
I don't get any money from this.
Sorry, we've lost money. We've lost money.
We've lost money because you want a big building who's going to...
Yeah, so what happens to the money we've lost?
I honestly tell you this, as far as I'm concerned, those buildings, which are warehouses, they don't bring good wages into the
I
business.
don't care about their wages.
No,
I don't care about their
I'm
wages.
trying to tell you, I don't want them type of buildings. I want buildings where...
Yeah, but we've got them.
But you don't listen to us.
But you're telling me after the event.
Well, what are you going to do? What can you do?
What happened in January when there was a council meeting, those 10 councillors who voted for this, they had no choice. There was
What do you mean they had no choice?
They either vote for it or vote against it.
Yeah,
And
vote against it then. You did it in
they
5
can't
minutes.
vote against it because planning law said
What
it
did
was
vote
correct.
Just
What's
to,
the point
so
of
it was a
vote?
fasting.
They can't vote
It
no.
was a done deal, wasn't it? So there was no point in having it.
There was a point in having the meeting because if when
Find out
the
if
letters
you've got
We've
enough
watched that
vehicles.
meeting.
Parking spaces for the people that are going to work
if
there.
when the letters went out, and there was 180 of them, there had been complaints, and some of those people who made the complaints were then invited into the council meeting or got their councillors involved, there would have been a protest about it, but there wasn't. So because of the planning laws as it stands, there was no
Right, so we're going
complaints
around in
against
circles.
it.
Am I right in thinking the only thing we're going to get out of this today is
Nothing.
we get no answers, you can't do anything, all we can do is go and seek solicitors' advice and try and take it to court.
So
Is
if,
that right? Is that all we could do? Because the buildings aren't coming down, no one's
And
going to
believe
be
me, much more
compensation,
than happy to
and you're
do
just going to
that.
put some trees up to try and make it
Is
quiet.
But the trees aren't going to be tall enough, and they'll just cover your property
and
in
the
leaves.
planning law
And like-
allows to build that whole building, that close to the residential property, is that the law?
Yes, it conforms with the law.
Right.
We don't want more trees, they don't look after the ones that are in their land now.
I've been round and seen.
Am I right? Is that the answer? Is that all we have as an option?
No. Then you get damage from roots, because the buildings.
Right,
Well,
right.
like where houses and a monstrosity, and how high above the houses that was going to be.
I mean, you've agreed with
There's
them.
6 houses. Why would nobody?
Why would they agree to that when you yourself, been in the business God knows how many years, you say it's wrong, but they passed it.
Seems to avoid the question,
Well,
of course.
somebody was deciding that, all they're asking.
What's the point of having a plan if you can't see it?
But Mike, permanent members of the planning board are there, they're the experts, more so than you.
They looked at all of the.
Why didn't they come today?
It was, which is why they recommended it for approval, and it was approved.
But you can see it's
And
not
it's the same
right.
for the last
But
page.
you can see it's in a plan.
Why didn't you bring them with you this evening?
You can see it's not right.
Could I just jump in there, because we're running out of meeting time.
Yes.
We need to be out of here probably about 5 to 6, so that the next group coming in here can rearrange the room. But can we have another meeting in, say, 2 or 3 weeks' time? You've got all of our issues here. There might be others that might be raised. And can we get people back here who can then specifically answer those and confirm or deny whether
Yes,
they're
good
right or
idea.
wrong? Yeah?
No, because it's pointless, isn't it?
Well, I'm just trying to think, again, councillors change, and when the officers change, I don't think the officers were together with us.
What's
Just the
It's
decision.
all the information, surely.
What about asking Andrew Johnson, the email today?
Sorry?
Andrew Johnson, the on my council, he emailed the director today, this afternoon, and said he's going to talk to me next week at the outcome of this meeting. How about getting him in a couple of weeks?
What about getting Brian down?
Andrew
Get them on here.
And some legal.
And Simon.
But, I mean,
We could go and chain ourselves to the building.
the officer's report and the decision is the decision. It can't be reversed.
Okay, can I just ask one question?
It can be
People
reversed.
are just people are upset before and we do realise that we're not the village of the scene. As your councillors representing us, what would you suggest our next steps would be as a councillor supporting the people?
The problem I've got is that I know or I have explained to me the planning law, and that it will not happen that they will come down because they conform to all the regulations as required.
I know.
So
As a person who has been to planning law or know about planning law, in other situations you may have come to hold. There was an instance 2 years ago when it was granted for this, and this is what they've done. This is what I suggest you to do. Help.
I would go to great pains to ensure that the conditions on lighting, landscaping, noise are fully explored and enforced.
And what about parking in our street? Because we live in the back entrance, we
Yeah.
cut through to the
Yeah.
back entrance.
Yeah, I did ask a question on that, but I don't know an answer yet. And I thought there might have been a condition imposed stopping.
How are you going to stop them?
Well, that was the next question, is how can we enforce it?
Make it permit holders only.
Yeah, we can.
Permit holders only, but don't let us have to pay for it.
So is there anything you can suggest that we should do as our next step?
I mean, I've been looking on the internet today about different countries and how they deal with these things, and it's not just in England, Great Britain or whatever. Some places they put up enormous buffers in front
Oh,
of
it's going even higher.
Yeah, they put them up to actually deflect the noise upwards, not downwards. And in front of those buffers, they put, they're like 3D murals of trees and bushes, etc. I'm not, I'm just saying,
It will still affect the light coming into our property. It will still affect the light coming into
Yeah,
the properties and in the gardens and shade the gardens. You don't want that.
Well, no, details mentioned that to me. They might look at an option of putting an acoustic fence up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not what we want.
No, I know that's not what you want. I mean, I was totally sympathetic. The best thing that I could
You said it was
do
in past.
was have the buildings taken
You
down.
agreed it
I'd love
to
to have them
now.
taken down. That's no problem. But
Is that legally
in
to be
legal
that
planning
close to
terms,
us?
it's not going to happen.
Can it be that close to us? Is that viable?
It may be. I'm not saying it is. If you think it is, then go ahead. But I don't think that you're building within
The barrier that was on the wall that was agreed. Hopefully considered in 2017.
Yeah, that's what we need to find out, because how close.
And we can get, if we get another meeting, get responses from the technical people, who apparently will report into Mike. And get responses that says it's legal or it's not.
I think that's been, I think the person that put it back near, who said that's been authorised, I think that paper's been hidden, because I don't think that is legal.
25 meters.
The only paperwork there is the plans, which were approved for 2 plan committees. The officers have been down today with their temperature, they have measured the height,
Yes.
measured with their laser, and the distance between
But
the...
they've also agreed it's too high. They tried to fog off that it was meant to be 12.
No,
It's
they're not in a
15.
position to agree. It's my personal opinion it's too high. I'd never agree to that.
And it is too close.
All they can do is say, right, these are the plans, this is what we built.
But legally that close.
That's the legal document, it hasn't been built in accordance with the...
That's what I would like, is the
That's
legal
all they-
document.
What we want to
I want the
say,
legal
the plan is for parking actually legal.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
Oh, the plans.
Yes. Exactly, that's what I want to get the rumors. Where's the legality of it? Where's the proof that that's legal?
Well, plans are agreed using policies, which are in the local plan.
Right. How do we get hold of that?
Yeah.
That's what I want.
It's on the internet, but I can send you a link. We now have a new plan, but it's under the old plan. So I can send you a link to that. That is a
See,
big
that's the thing, it's going
We
on.
need the one that
Sorry, it's updated every 5 years.
Can I just ask you about the process of how planning works? The plan was approved in 2017, but any subsequent changes to the building in terms of height or maybe coming closer, as that lady has explained.
Yes, it's
to
yes.
the- yeah,
There is
to the
amendment.
order, do you not have to go, do you not have a planning as a whole, have a responsibility to go back to the people adjacent to the property to say, look, this is changing?
Yes.
You know, these are the modifications we've made. What is the situation? You know, are you comfortable with them? Because it would appear to me that in 2017, the set of plans was approved, a dimension was set, size and all the rest of it. But then since then, the whole thing's morphed.
Yeah.
And I can tell you now from engineering, when you do a change, you write it down, you specify it, and you put it out to other people. Because you have to get concurrence from your customers, from the people who work with you. Obviously, I don't think that's been happening. And that to me doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
Because I would have thought it's incumbent upon the council to make sure that the residents understand how something is changing. Because otherwise, you know, you could sign up to something, say, that's 25 minutes high, and then maybe 4 years later, you end up with something that's about 30 metres high.
Sign up for
Which
a
people-
loan.
which people-
Can I just answer
You
this
can't
question?
write a blank cheque, you can't have a blank cheque.
You're right, that's the procedure. So if an application is put in and is then changed, it all has to be reconsulted again if there are any changes. Now, what has happened here is that 2017 there was no building involved. All that was consented was the school outline. So basically it's asking, does this application conform to the local plan, i.e. the overall policy? Yes, this piece of land is for employment, it's specified in the local plan specifically. So, okay, what's the border? So the border is drawn. What's the size? Total of 400, I don't know how they came to this figure, 44,000 square metres of warehouse is agreed. That was all that was agreed in 2017. Everything has to come forward then to another planning application, which is called reserve matters or detailed planning application, which specifies the buildings and all the bits and everything. There was nothing changed between 2017 and 2021, and then when the building was submitted, nothing changed since.
But how is it possible you can define the square meterage of the site, you can describe what you're going to do in that area, but you don't describe the buildings that are going to be built? So how can people approve that if you are not sharing that information with the public?
Yeah, well, again, we did send that message, but what it does, I mean, outline broadly is used by developers to get the principle of development. So, council agrees in principle you can put some warehouses on that land, and then the detail is the actual building. It kind of gives them comfort to spend the money, because it costs a lot of money for an application, gives them the comfort to spend the money to do the detail. And I think in the case of this, they put it in to get it, and then they went off to try and find tenants before they built the properties, which I think they did a couple of.
I think in principle, I'm trying to say people could have looked at it and gone, oh, it's only a one-storey high building.
Yeah,
exactly.
Why wouldn't the
They wouldn't have said that, you see,
right
they
by
wouldn't
the
have specified at all.
Yeah.
Why not put the smaller ones near the houses and the bigger ones over the back?
Well, I think that's a great idea, but the developer.
Yeah, but they're
wasn't
just
doing
being
it.
selfish then,
Didn't
aren't
we
they?
do that?
Guys, we've got to vacate this room shortly.
Yeah,
Mike, I asked a question, David, I asked a question earlier, can we have a follow-up meeting where all of these can be specifically answered in, let's say, 2 to 3 weeks' time? Can we have a yes or no on that, please?
So Mike, David, can we have a 150-page report?
Yes.
And give it to the people who have got the problem with the building right outside their house?
Thank you.
Because at the end of the day, if you guys can't do anything about it, then these guys will have to take that report, seek solicitors and take it to court. Because I think there's something quite underhanded here.
You did say it's 4 houses, we only had 8 houses.
So we've got a 150-page report given to the residents who's got the problem outside their back gardens.
One of the things I'd like to say is we're not here supporting anything other than the residents. I accept that those buildings are outrageous, and so does Mike.
So we're going to do all in your power.
Then be on our side about it and help us.
What we will try to do is, first of all, I will try and get the A86 addresses where those letters were sent.
I've got that
If you've got
information.
that, right, well, if you've got that, I
Some
don't
of them
need to
were in the
get it.
canteen.
Oh, Paul wanted to question when we first come in.
So everywhere I've got two times.
We'll try and get there, but, even when it comes to whether we can, I can't see us knocking the buildings down. We've got to do
No,
things
because
to
you can't.
alleviate.
No, you can't knock them down because of the structure.
But you can
Tell
give
them
us-
why they can't knock it down.
You're not going to be able to lower the roof line. But what they could do,
And it won't knock it down.
what they
It
could
costs too much
do
money.
if they were pushed into it, is they can take out bays, because it's a modular construction.
And
You can
take those bays
you
away
can
from
take
their
six-
houses
you can
and
take
move it
6
up.
bays out,
That's
you
what's
can move it
needed.
up the end of the site.
And you need to
their-
fight that.
So their square meterage is maintained, and that would give these people who have to put up with this huge wall, their back garden, it gives them.
And a tree won't cut it, believe me.
I mean, at the moment,
Guys, sorry, can I have to cut